Hi everyone, my name's Chris from Synapse, and today is the first day of Brain Injury Awareness Week, a week where we are recognizing that every brain injury is different. And today I'm joined by a host of special guests here as we talk a little bit more about finding a home when you have a brain injury and what that looks like. So for many people, brain injury makes it hard to live in the place we called home. So how do we go about making our homes more accessible? How do we find out about alternatives, and what support can you get along the way? And so to talk about all this today, I'm joined by Libby Ellis and Libby Witts from Housing Hub, and very own Joe Stevens here from Synapse. Thanks for joining us, everyone. So first of all, a little bit about both of our organizations. So Synapse, as many will know, we're Australia's brain injury organisation, doing a lot of peak body work, service provision, and support for people impacted by brain injury. And the Housing Hub is an initiative of the Summer Foundation that offers a way for people to find accessible housing for themselves. And you can find out more about both organisations by checking out our websites, so synapse.org.au and housinghub.org.au. So thanks again for joining us, everyone. Libby Ellis, I thought we might start with you, if you'd like to say good day and introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, my name is Libby Ellis and I work at Housing Hub. I'm part of a national team that provides information, support and advice to people with disability, their families and supporters.
That's great. And Joe, maybe we can hear a little from you as well.
Sure. So as you know, my name is Jo. I work in the Queensland team. So we provide a range of services, including information and particularly housing for people with brain injury.
Great. And Libby Ellis, we've also got another Libby with us today, Libby Witts, if you'd like to introduce her. And yeah.
Go for it, Libby.
Hello, my name is Libby Witts. I work at Summer Foundation as a Lived Experience Associate. I also work at Monash University as a research assistant.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us, Libby. So we thought we would start, Libby, about hearing a little bit about your story and your lived experience of brain injury.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in the country Victoria and New South Wales. At the end of year 11, when I was 17, I was involved in a serious car accident with my family. I acquired a brain injury. My parents were injured, and sadly, my older sister lost her life. I was in a coma for a couple of months. Sustaining a brain injury really is like being born again. You have to relearn everything. Whilst I spent a year in rehab hospital in Melbourne, my friends in Sale were completing year 12. I had always envisaged that I would go to university, hoping to be, funny enough, an occupational therapist or a PE teacher. My new learning style was very different. I started off slow with short courses. When I moved back to Sale, I completed an integration aid course and studied disability certificate 4, which gave me entry into Monash University. I had always heard stories about living on campus and the fun it was. So I wanted to give it a shot. Unfortunately, the only accessible cabin was in the most expensive part. Kindly Monash University gave it to me at the lower rate. It was hard work at uni, but I wanted to do it so much. Towards the end of my degree, I had surgery here in Melbourne, and my family decided to move here for better access. So I ended up finishing my degree here in Melbourne. I always had a dream of moving out by the time I was 30. So in my late 20s, I began the journey of looking at for real estate. That's where all the difficulties began. I always thought I'd buy off the plan, but that wasn't an option for me. And a lot of the new facilities being built were far too small for a wheelchair. After 5 years with TAC, you have an option of ongoing pay or a payout. I was advised to take a payout because I had always hoped to work one day with my degree. I wasn't able to rent because I needed an accessible apartment. I went to a few auctions with no luck. As I had the money and I was looking for a way to get an accessible home. Finally, the stars aligned and I came across an apartment block which was about 10 years old. It had everything I needed with the ability to be renovated for access. I bought the apartment with a loan and signed the papers 1 month before my 30th birthday. It took TAC 2 years to do the renovations and planning. And so I moved in a month before my 32nd birthday. I still live here now and I love it. I am now able to independently look after my own self-care, but I need someone to help me clean, take me shopping and appointments as I can't drive. I also need help to practice walking. My family still fortunately help me with a lot of things. And I also wear a meatpack alarm on my wrist in case I have a fall so I can press my alarm. Since acquiring the disability, I am quite passionate about disability discrimination. I studied social work, and as this covers quite a disability discrimination covers quite a large field of issues, I feel most strongly about false stereotypical presumptions, accessibility to public resources like toilets, shops, sporting venues, restaurants, pubs, entertainment, etc. No one has the right to deny those who have a disability access to venues which able bodies can access.
Libby, can you, because there might be people watching from areas other than Victoria, can you say what the TAC is?
TAC are car insurance, of which when you register your car, that money goes to TAC. So if you are insured, when you have a car accident, you're covered for life for your medical needs.
Thanks, Libby. And there's similar bodies across different states of the country as well. So if anyone has any questions about that, we can certainly help you with that. So we thought I would maybe hear a little from Joe. We've heard Libby's story there, Joe, and really interesting. And I think you might have some more to add to that as far as various different people's similar experiences.
Yeah, sure. And I think, Libby, you've touched on a lot of those experiences for many people. So as we know, historically, government and welfare groups have responded really poorly, if at all, to the housing needs of people with a brain injury. And a lot of the time, it's because people with a brain injury have such diverse needs and require really sophisticated response. We also know that inflexible requirements create real barriers to being flexible and innovative and being individualised with people's needs. There is no set model of housing that can be developed in the same way each time. Of course, this would be very contrary and opposite to the aim of individualising arrangement for each and every tenant that's supported.
Thanks, Joe. So Libby, given your experiences, I think you've got a few points you'd like to make, some sort of advice that you would give other people who maybe been in a similar situation. Did you want to talk about that?
I think Libby got a couple of slides about that as well.
Yeah. Throw those slides up. There we go. We've got that one there now.
So Libby, what would you tell people? We were talking last week when we were preparing for this, we were thinking about what your advice might be for people who find themselves in rehab or in hospital right now.
Yep. I want to tell people to believe better is possible. It's often confronting when you have or you acquire a disability and you're looking for housing. But just know that there are ways and things that can be done. Don't just settle for anything. I've always been fairly determined in my life, but there is people out there that can help us. So don't just settle for anything.
Yeah, and another thing when we were chatting last week, and I was reading your story as well. You said that you felt you said that you felt really safe and secure in rehab hospital, that there were familiar faces, familiar surroundings, and your timetable was quite similar.
Yep.
And you said that this resulted in you feeling like quite institutionalized, so that the thought of moving felt quite scary. I wondered if you wanted to talk a little bit about that, because people may be in that situation now.
Yep. In rehab hospital, it's you're given the same time for everything every single day. There's no unpredictability, which is often confronting for people with brain injuries, or even other disabilities. We like to be planned and have the same, so nothing throws us off. I was petrified about moving home. But if you have a strong support network around you, that really helps. Yep.
And similarly, again, I think Joe, you had some additional advice to expand on there as well for people.
Yeah, which I think, again, really reinforces what you said, Libby. I guess there are two separate but really connected elements that are likely to produce successful living arrangements for people living with a brain injury, and they are quality housing and quality support. So you can have the best support team in the world, and you can have a house that you can't get around in. And I think in the reverse too, you could have the best house in the world, but you could then have people supporting you that have no idea what they're doing. So in order to be successful, it needs to be both of those things together. I think the other thing is to involve individuals really early. Libby, as you said, you like it planned and structure, and I think that's the real aim and purpose of bringing people together very early, so there is an understanding, and the person with the brain injury is actually leading that transition into their new home. And it also helps, I guess, to manage that fear and anxiety, because we know it's actually really scary moving, let alone moving into your own place. So having that support network, as you said, Libby, is quite invaluable. And I think the thing that sticks out to me the most is that people with a brain injury really need to imagine the possibility and not have really low expectations, but have high expectations and thinking about, what is it that I want to do and how am I going to get there?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. It's very clear if you are able to be determined and advocate for yourself, certainly that's something that's really necessary, but also involving family and friends and other people who are able to support you to help you push forward, and just to know what's out there and what's available is also so important. So it's why organizations like Synapse and Housing Hub exist, to help people sort of find that information and know what they're able to do and how they can advocate for themselves in that way. So we thought, Libby, we'd hear you spoke a little bit about the house that you're currently in and loving still, which is great to hear. So we thought maybe you could speak a little bit more to, I guess, how you found that home and what makes it the right home for you. And we've got a bit of a slide here for people, which I'll throw up. So yeah, if you wanted to talk us through that a little bit, that'd be great.
What is some advice that I feel is relevant? When looking at real estate, it's important to check for accessibility from street level. No point looking at an apartment on level 10 if you're in a wheelchair and there's no lift. Also look at evacuation, close to the facilities and the right support. Have features to meet your needs, or in my case, have potential for renovation. In my place, I now have an accessible car park, bathroom, kitchen, and I have an electronic keypad on my door, which gives me access in and out. Most of all, you've got to like where you live. It's a really good idea to list your activities of daily living and in the day and work out what needs you have. I thought I didn't have any support needs because my mum and dad were doing most of it. But when I thought about what would I do if they weren't there, I had a lot more needs than what I thought.
Yeah, thanks, Libby. And Joe, you've got some more, I guess, information to add along those similar lines as well, based on your experience and the people you've worked with over the years.
And I think, again, really supporting what Libby has talked about, particularly in relation to, I guess, a support provider. A really good support provider enables and facilitates the individual to lead the process. That is a really good support provider. You might have really great staff with a lot of skills, and that's fabulous, but I guess the main role is that they're building capabilities of individuals. They're not just there to provide personal care support. I think, Libby, you touched on as well safety. And I think from my experience, what I have seen is there is a very big difference between safety inside the home and safety outside the home. So you could have a real sense of feeling very, very safe at home, but as soon as that front door opens and you've got to go outside, it's a whole different story. So I think through that transition process, it's really about working with people to talk about what is making them feel unsafe and what are your concerns, so they can be, I guess, worked on and addressed as you go through the process.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, that's really I guess a lot there that we often don't think about in our day-to-day lives of like what is actually a need or what might be a need down the track if situations change. So yeah, really good for people to be aware of that and thinking about yeah, what the future might look like as well as their present needs. So Libby, Ellis, you've got a little bit of information you'd like to share about the National Disability Insurance Scheme and where that might play a part for people with a brain injury looking to find a home for themselves.
Yeah, Chris, I actually thought we could hear from Libby again. She's got some really great advice about her experience with the TAC, which I thought was really good advice for all bureaucracies and schemes, including
Sure.
NDIS.
Yep.
So Libby, did you want to tell us about what advice you give people who are dealing with bureaucracies or dealing with the TAC?
Yeah, well, the NDIS was actually frameworked off the model of the TAC, so it's very similar. I would recommend building a good relationship with your coordinator, and if you can't establish that, you can always ask for a new one. You have the right to that. Be aware that requests may take time, so don't leave things until the last minute. I sometimes feel guilty asking for things as my medical needs are quite expensive, but I have to remember they're an insurance agency and that's what we pay our car registration for. I have the right to request support to enable me to live as I would if I hadn't been injured. And it's so important to remember you always have the right to appeal a decision.
Yes, such good advice to lead into thinking about the NDIS. So at Housing Hub, Libby and I, as I said, are part of a team that can provide you with a lot of information and advice around the National Disability Insurance Scheme. So we'll share our contact details at the end, but we've got a phone line, we've got an email line, and we've got workshops and all sorts of things that we'd love to see you at. And we can talk more about all of these steps that Joe and Libby have said are so important, and we break them down and we help people get started with those really important steps. Like, how do I find a good support provider? How do I map out my day? When do I ask for that? When do I do that in the NDIS process? All of those kinds of questions we can talk through with you in more detail. But I thought we'd just share some initial information about the NDIS. We've got a couple of slides again. So we often meet people we're often talking with people who haven't had assistance to think through like everything that the NDIS may be able to help them with and everything that they have a right to talk about in a planning meeting or talk to the NDIS about. So I've listed some of those things out today. And you, if you're listening, you may want to investigate some of these further. Again, you can talk to Synapse or to us about these. So in terms of help, both finding a home and then help to live in your home, the NDIS can do these sorts of things. It can provide support to help you learn the skills that you need to live in your home. It can provide you with help with your personal care needs. It could even make physical changes to a home. That's called home modifications. It provides help to people around their home. So things like help in the garden or help with cleaning if you're not able to do that because of your disability. And It also can provide people with equipment and technology that they need to become more self-sufficient, more independent in their home. So a wheelchair is an example of that. And Libby, you talked about, I think, about some equipment that you've got in your home.
Yep. Well, my automatic door is a lifesaver. I have a keypad, and once I put in my PIN, it opens up for me, which is great when I'm in the wheelchair. I have a fully accessible kitchen, bathroom. All my doors have been widened. Accessible cupboards. Yeah.
And Joe, did you have any examples? Sorry, I'm maybe putting you on the spot there.
That's okay. I guess my example is maybe in reverse, because we often talk about individuals with a physical disability, and I guess, you know, widening doorways and things like you've talked about, Libby. But I think what is often forgotten is the physical environment for someone with a brain injury who may not have physical limitations, but definitely has cognitive impairments. So I think that's something that is often overlooked, and it would be great to see, I guess, some more action in that space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this list, so obviously the NDIS makes decisions about what it will fund in somebody's plan, and that's called reasonable and necessary support. But the list that we're giving you is a really great list to think through, things that you can take forward to talk to the NDIS about. We've got a second list. I think the list keeps going. Yeah, so some of these things are quite interesting. So the NDIS could fund a short stay somewhere else. That's called short-term accommodation. It can also fund something called medium-term accommodation. These things might become important if you're a person who's stuck in hospital and you've got a long-term solution, but it's not currently available to you. So you need something, you need somewhere to live in the meantime. So you could be waiting for home modifications. You could be being, you know, influenced by those hospital timeframes. You may be waiting for the NDIA to make decisions, or you may be waiting on a new specialist disability accommodation home. So these could all be reasons why you might want to talk to the NDIS about short and medium-term accommodation. The NDIS can also help people to look for a home and help to find good services that Joe was talking about. And that funding is called support coordination, or a support coordinator. The NDIS can also fund the assessments that you might need for these things. So things like home modifications, learning new skills. They might all take somebody like an OT time to do an assessment with you. So the NDIS can also fund those things. And lastly, so this list you can see is all about kind of people, what you need to have help in your home, as well as some of the short-term or interim housing options. So the NDIS does also fund the cost of housing, so the cost of the bricks and mortar for some people with disability. And so that's called Specialist Disability Accommodation, or SDA. So for some people it provides help in the home, as well as help with the cost of the bricks and mortar or the home, and that's SDA, and I think we've got a short video to show about SDA.
Specialist Disability Accommodation, or SDA, is a house or apartment or other type of home that is specially designed for people who need a lot of support, or whose disability has a big effect on what they can do and how they do things. SDA includes special features that assist people to live as independently as possible. Depending on who it's designed for, an SDA property might have wide doorways, a hoist in the bedroom or bathroom, strong walls and windows that won't get broken easily, or special technology.
Alexa, open all blinds.
Opened.
Some SDA properties have around-the-clock concierge support, meaning if the battery in your wheelchair dies or you need some other type of support in a hurry, someone is close by to assist.
Hi Ben, how can we help?
If you have really high support needs, or if your disability makes it hard to live in the sorts of housing that most people live in, then specialist disability accommodation might suit you. For more info, email info@housinghub.org.au.
So Joe, we thought we would now talk a little bit, I guess, about the idea of getting from A to B, as far as if somebody is looking for a home at the moment, where to from here, and what they need to do.
Sure. I think, again, Libby, as you've mentioned before, there's so many things to think about. So it's where you want to live, who you want to live with or not live with. Do you want to be near family? Do you not want to be near family? Are there, I guess, transport options for you around? Is the house the right place for you? And I think even things around, do I have the furniture that I need? I think the biggest thing to be thinking about, obviously, is cost, because I'm sure all of us would like to live in a multi-million-dollar house, but we all have a budget. So I think that's something to really look at as well. Even the smaller things, like how do I actually apply for a rental? How do I apply for bond assistance? All of those things that seem quite small that are actually really huge. But I think most importantly, from getting from A to B and looking at then the transition, I actually think is the most important part of the process. Moving into your home is great, but how you get there, I think, is really, really important. And I think, as I said before, you can't do that without a team of people that you trust. It's almost impossible. So I think, as I said, the individual has to lead the way, has to be very, very clear about what they want and when they want it, and not settle, not lower expectations, because that's what's always been done. I think one of the other complexities that often comes up is families want their loved one to be safe, and often think the only option for that is 24/7 support in a shared home, which is completely understandable because you want your loved one to be safe. But I think it's really about understanding that everybody is an individual, and therefore the housing options also need to be individualized. There is not, this is one model and that's what everybody needs. It has to be very, very much designed around the person and what they want and how they want it. I think the other thing that we see that comes up an awful lot is that we might plan everything out into an inch of its life, but we all know when you move house, not everything goes to plan. It just doesn't. That's life, but it's really about when those things don't go to plan, what are the opportunities then? We didn't think this would happen, it's now happened. How do we turn that into a success? So we see that a lot, but I think, and I think I have said it before, but the biggest and most important thing is for people to look at what are the possibilities for me? What are the possibilities for my family member? And how do I get there? And when I'm not steady and I'm finding this really hard, who are the people that support me and pick me up so we keep going? Because it can be a very long process, and it's also incredibly stressful for all of those people involved. So it's really about finding that network of people that will hold you as you go through it, and understanding that things don't always go to plan, but the goal that you have, you've got to get there. And don't, I guess, second guess yourself with that, but understand very clearly where you want to go, because you'll get there in the end.
Great, thanks, Joe. And Libby, did you have some more to add to that? Libby Ellis?
No, I thought that was just brilliant, but and we wholeheartedly agree, and we'd love to support you with what you need around that. Libby, I think Libby W, I think you've got some thoughts about what are the most important things to think about when moving or getting from A to B.
Yep. Well, as Joe and I have already stressed, you really need to think about your needs. What do you need to function and live an everyday life? You've got to work out your budget, including furniture, because you've moved from either your parents' home or a shared accommodation where it's all provided, so you need everything. I couldn't live in a house because of the maintenance that I wouldn't be able to do myself, and I needed a ground level for evacuation purposes and also renovation. I also wanted a spare bedroom, so I have carers stay for my family. So 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom, with the potential of modifications. Able to go ahead, close to my support network in the area that I like, and you've got to work out if you want to live alone or share. Yep.
Thanks, Libby. So I guess from here, guys, it really is just a case of if people have any more questions or want to start the conversation around any of this, is how they can get in touch with either Synapse or Housing Hub. So yeah, Libby, did you want to sort of give us a bit of an idea of what people can do to chat to you guys?
Yeah. So, Chris, as you mentioned at the beginning of the session, Housing Hub is a website that advertises properties for people with disability across Australia. So one thing that you can do is use the Housing Hub to search for housing. And the best way to do that is to create an account, or what we call a profile. And that's a big blue button on the front page of the website that you can put in all the details, like the things that Libby just mentioned that she needed in a home. You can answer some questions like that, and then Housing Hub can send you emails or send your a supporter or a family member those emails with some examples of properties in them that you might like to look at. The other thing that you can do is be in touch with us. So we have a phone number and an email. And we also run workshops for people with disability about the NDIS and housing, and we go into much more detail. So they're small sessions. They always involve people with disability presenting them and talking with each other. So you'd be most welcome to contact us about those sessions. And I think, Chris, you've got our phone number and our email on a slide as well. And if you're watching, because we're going to be showing this on Thursday the 19th, aren't we, on Facebook, on Synapse's Facebook, on Housing Hub's Facebook, and Summer Foundation's Facebook. So if you're watching on any of the channels right now, we'll be there and you can type in a question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Joe, you might be able to elaborate a little bit more on the kinds of things people can speak to Synapse about. Obviously, the easiest way for people to get in touch with Synapse is via email or our 1-800 number, which will show on the screen in a moment. But yeah, if you wanted to just sort of elaborate on the kinds of things people can chat about when speaking with Synapse.
Sure. So we are a national organisation, and we have a 1-800 number, which is obviously anyone in Australia can call and ask anything about brain injury. One of the biggest focuses for Synapse is to increase awareness of brain injury. So we do have a national information line. As I spoke about, you can call about anything, services that Synapse may have. We have a number of resources on our website, and we also have a number of peer groups. So we'll have groups for people with a brain injury and a number of groups for carers with a brain injury. At this point in time, they're operating across Queensland and New South Wales, predominantly online, given the certain circumstances we're going through. But we have a range of services, including advocacy. We work very heavily with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. We have NDIS services. However, that's not, I guess, the priority for us. It's just one of the things that we do. And like I said, one of our biggest aims is to obviously work with, I guess, those cohorts of people with brain injury that are often forgotten and fall through the cracks. So I guess that's our mandate at Synapse.
Fantastic. Thanks, Joe. And thanks, Libby Ellis and Libby Witts. Really appreciate your time joining us today, and particularly Libby sharing your story and your experiences. I'm sure many out there will have learned a lot from that, and particularly be inspired by your determination to find a home that's right for you. So yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, guys. We appreciate your time as we sort of join together for Brain Injury Awareness Week, and we hope that people have gotten a lot out of this session. And again, as we say, if there is any questions at all about housing or finding a home, if you're impacted by a brain injury, certainly get in touch with either ourselves here at Synapse or the team at the Housing Hub, and we'll be able to help you out.